Okay, finishing up where we left off at from the last section, we have here find the measure of angle X, angle Y, and angle Z. Okay, now what we have here is basically the same type of figure we had in the previous lesson where we were trying to find the vertical angles. And one thing we know is that the vertical angles are congruent, and we know congruent just means equal. So if you look here, this is 44 degrees. So that means that this Y must be 44 degrees. So now we have 44 degrees here. This Y is 44 degrees. So we ask ourselves, we have Y and X. They will form a straight angle. And we know straight angles is equal to 180 degrees. So we know X plus Y must give us 180 degrees. Now Y, we already stated, is 44 degrees. So we just solve for X by subtracting 44 degrees on both sides. So we have X is equal to 136 degrees. So X is 136 degrees, and the vertical angle of X is Z, which is also 136 degrees. So our final answers here is X is 136 degrees, Y is 44 degrees, and Z is 136 degrees. And we're done with that problem. Now, we'll move on down to the next problem. Now we start section 9.2 perimeter. It says section A, perimeter of a polygon. A polygon is a two-dimensional shape with straight lines. The perimeter of a polygon is the distance around the polygon. To calculate the perimeter of a polygon, we're going to add all the sides. Examples. Find the perimeter of each polygon. Don't forget to label your answers with the correct units. Okay, now we come down here to number 1. We want to find the perimeter of each of these polygons. Okay, now what we would do with number 1 here, this triangle, we would just add all of the sides. So we add 6 centimeters plus 8 centimeters plus 10 centimeters. 6 plus 8 is 14 plus 10 is 24. So 24 centimeters is your perimeter for number 1. Now number 2, if you look at this figure here, this looks like a rectangle. Now a rectangle says the opposite sides are equal to each other. So this will be 1/4 foot, and this will be 1/3 foot. Now we must add all of these values together. So this is how I would do it. We had a perimeter is equal to 1/4 foot plus 1/3 foot plus 1/4 foot plus 1/3, and you could write, well, I'll try and write feet here. Okay, now what I would do is this here. Since we know that addition is commutative, which means that it doesn't matter which order we add in, we will still get the same answer. I will add the fractions that have the same denominators first, like 1/2. So correction, it's supposed to be 1/4 feet plus 1/4 feet, which would give us 2/4 feet. Now we would take 1/3 feet plus 1/3 feet, which would give us 2/3 feet. Now we can simplify 2/4. We know the simplification of 2/4 is 1/2. So it'll be 1/2 foot plus 2/3 feet. Now the common denominator, we know both 2 and 3 are both prime numbers. So we know our common denominator of 2 and 3 is 6. Now 6 divided by 2 is 3. So we'll multiply our numerator and denominator by 3. 3 times 1 is 3, and 3 times 2 is 6. Now 6 divided by 3 is 2. We multiply our numerator and denominator by 2, and that will give us 4 6. So we add 3 6 feet plus 4 6 feet, which will give us 7 6 feet. And this is the final answer. Now we go over here to number 3. Now again, this is somewhat in the shape of a rectangle, but this part here is not the rectangular part. So we look here, this side here and this side here is the same length. So it'll be the same value, which would be 9 inches. Now, if we look here, this whole side here is 14 inch. If we have 3 inches here and 6 inches here, that's 9. So this missing side here would be 5 inches. Now, our next step here, we need to find this side. Now, this side and this side looks to be the same amount, so that'll be 2 inches, or the same length. So now we have all of the sides. So we can add all of these. We have the perimeter is equal to 9. Well, I'm not going to write inches until the end. So it'll be 9 plus 14 plus 9 plus 6 plus 2 plus 5 plus 2 plus 3. Now we add all of these up. 9 plus 14 is 23, plus 9 is 32, plus 6 is 38, plus 2 is 40, plus 5 is 45, plus 2 is 47, and plus 3 is 50. So it's 50 inches. Now we go here to section B, which is circles. Circles are not polygons, and the reason why they're not polygons, disregarding what's in the inside here, a circle does not have a straight line. That's why it's not a polygon. But they are shapes that occur often. So we will study them. Let's start by reviewing some vocabulary. Label the diagram below. Okay, now first of all, whenever you have a line that goes from one end to the circle to the other end and crosses the center of the circle, this is called the diameter. Okay, now when you have a line that goes from one end of the circle to the center of the circle, that is called the radius. So the radius is half of what the diameter is. Now the distance around a circle is called the circumference. Circumference is just a fancy way of saying perimeter. That's the perimeter of a circle. Okay, the circumference can be calculated in either of two ways. We have C equals pi times diameter, or C is equal to 2 pi r, or 2 pi times the radius. Now the C represents circumference. Now remember, the reason why we can have these two separate formulas is this here. The diameter is 2 times whatever the radius is. So that is why we have 2 times pi times the radius, because 2 times the radius is the diameter. Now, we look down here, examples. It says, find the circumference or perimeter of each shape. Now, we look here. Depending on what we have, if we had a radius, we should use the radius formula. If we had a diameter, we should use the diameter formula. So we look here and we notice we have the radius formula. So we're going to use the formula that involves the radius. So we could write that formula out. We will have C is equal to 2 pi r. Now, we have C 2 times, now we use 3.14 as an approximation for pi, and our radius is 3.8. I shouldn't have wrote it over here because I ran out of space. Okay, so now we would take our circumference is equal to 2 times 3.14 times 3.8. Now we could take our calculator. Now, I'm not showing you the calculator, but you could just take out your calculator and multiply all three of these numbers together. And when you multiply these three numbers together, it will give you 23.864. Now, most of the times when we deal with a problem like this, we will round it to 2 decimal places. So it'd be the circumference is equal to 23.86 and it's meters. And that is the approximation of this problem. Now we look here at number 2. Now with number 2, you notice here that this is half of a circle, right? So then what we would do is we would take the circumference of half of the circle, and since we had a diameter, it would be pi times diameter. But if you notice here, we have this straight line that's exposed all by itself. So we would have to add 8 inches to whatever this final answer is. So the circumference is equal to 1/2 pi, we'll represent with 3.14. The diameter is 8 inches, and then plus 8 inches. So we have the circumference is equal to Now, we could take 1/2 times 3.14, which is 1.57, times 8 inches plus 8 inches. So we have the circumference is equal to, and we could put this on the calculator. We'll take 1.57 times 8. That gives us 12.56 inches plus 8 inches. 12.56 inches plus 8 inches is 20.56 inches. And we're done with that problem. Now we come to section C, applications of perimeter. Example, Sarah wants to sew a border on the quilt she made. The quilt is rectangular, 7.5 feet long and 6.25 feet wide. She has a 25-foot strip of border. Will she have enough to finish the quilt? Okay, first of all, we need to do the perimeter of this rectangular border here. So we have the perimeter is equal to, remember, it's 4 sides of a rectangle. So 2 sides are going to be that 7.5 feet. And 2 sides are going to be the 6.25 feet. Because remember, in a rectangle, opposite sides are equal to each other. 7.5 and 7.5 would give us 15 feet. And then 6.25 and 6.25 would be 12.50 feet. So 15 feet plus 12.50 feet is 27.50 feet. So your answer is no. Okay, now one other thing. We want to derive a formula real quick for the perimeter of a rectangle. Now remember, when you first learn how to multiply, you learn that whenever you add 2 of the same, that's saying 2 times that value. And this 7.5 is actually the length. So really this is 2 times the length plus the 6.25 is the width. So it'd be 2 times the width. So all we did was take 2 times the length. 2 times 7.5 is 15. And then 2 times the width, 2 times 6.25 is also 12.50. So we kind of sort of will cut it down a little bit by doing this formula. Now, we scroll down to the next example. Bob has a circular water garden in his yard. It is 10 feet in diameter. He wants to place a decorative brick edging around the garden. Each of the bricks is 1 foot long and costs $2.19. Now, first of all, this is circular, so we know we're going to use circumference. And we're given the diameter, so we'll do circumference is equal to pi times diameter. Now, what we would need to do is we'll take the circumference is equal to pi is 3.14 and the diameter is 10. So the circumference is 31.4, and actually it should be 10 feet. So it's 31.4 feet. Now we're told here that each of the bricks is 1 foot long. So we need 31.4 bricks. But you know that when they sell bricks, they will not give you 0.4 of a brick. So you'll need approximately 32 bricks. Okay, now how much will they cost? So it costs $2.19. So we'll take $2.19 and multiply it by 32. So we could take our calculator, or you could do it by hand. Either one is fine. And that will give us, it should give us a little over $60. Well, actually closer, a little over $70. So it'd be $70.08. And that would be the final answer. Now the last question said, if he also pays 6% sales tax, what would his total cost be? So we'll take the $70.08 and multiply by 0.06. And this will give us an approximate answer of $4.20. So we would take the $4.20 and add it to the $70.08, and that would give us a total cost of $74.28. So the final answer is $74.28.